Hello and welcome to another episode of our show. We are so excited for today's guest. He is a really good friend of mine, a motivational movement coach and astrology expert. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Kjord.
Hi.
Hi.
Happy to be here.
We're
Happy
so
to have
excited
you.
to
So
have
excited.
you. This
Yeah.
is so amazing.
Yes.
I just wanted to have you on because I feel like astrology has been something I've been so passionate about for so long, and it's been such a part of my life. And especially growing up in LA and being a total Valley girl, I'm always just like, oh my God, like, what's your sign? And
Overheard in LA.
I always have to know. I'm literally that account, Overheard LA. But I feel like when I talk to people, especially ones that are maybe from out of town, or just anyone that isn't really familiar with astrology, and even me, I have so much to learn.
We all do.
But I feel like so many people think it's just woo-woo. And I really feel like, well, from what I've studied, astrology is something that ancient astronomers did.
Yep.
And they used it in tandem with one another.
Yep.
And it's really a science and mathematical.
From like the beginning of time. In fact, time is basically astrology.
Mhm.
Agriculture has come from astrology to know when the rains are coming, when the floods are coming, when is the proper time to have the crops, right? When is the heat activating to, bring up the nourishment, so to speak. So
So we've been looking to astrology since ancient times. And so
ancient times.
that's what I really want to get into today.
Yeah.
Especially because one of my favorite sort of comebacks, I guess, when people try to like question me or take my belief in astrology down, is I always mention, how our bodies, the human body is made up of 60% water.
Yeah.
And we think of how much the moons affect the tides.
Yep.
Well, then why wouldn't the moons affect the moons? Well, then why wouldn't the moon affect our bodies?
Do you believe in seasons? That's the sun. That's astrology. It's our
All
lives
connected.
are guided by astrology. And I think that the thing is that people don't understand, or they might not believe in it until they have the personal experience of it. And then all of a sudden they're living the life of a Taurus, or in finance, they're working in New York, they're working on Wall Street. Well, it's Taurus or whatnot. So you can kind of begin to define, and then all of a sudden they start waking up and there's an awareness that comes in of like, oh yeah, I guess I can kind of see that. And the thing I love about astrology is it teaches us so much that we're so aspected as human beings. We're not just one thing. We're not just our looks. We are like also the flavors of life. We have like a drive to do this. We've all kind of been hurt in a way. What do we do with that hurt? What do we do with that pain? So astrology can give us kind of a guide to like where those might be. And sometimes we have to uncover, discover, and transform those things. And astrology helps with that. It's a great map.
Wow, that's amazing. And just for those of you listening who are a little trepidatious about this whole subject, I'm with you. I will be honest. I thought this whole thing was a little ridiculous until probably a couple years ago. And then I really started learning what astrology is. Like you both are saying, really the science behind it, what it's here to tell you, and more importantly too, what it's not here to tell you. And so I think both are equally as important, and really helped me see that this isn't as woo-woo, this isn't as scary. It really is. The animals know about the moon and what's happening just innately, everything you guys are touching on. So hopefully we'll be able to take away some of the mystique here.
When I work with clients and even myself, astrology is basically kind of a map of the soul. At the moment that you incarnate in this reality, you're taking on all of the pressures, the tensions, the emotions that are happening at the planet at that time.
Wow.
Not just the planet, but the solar system and really the universe. And, I think we were talking about like, oh, is this woo or is this science? Well, there's mathematical equations to where the planets are. Are they above you in the sky? Are they below the earth? How are they corresponding and interacting with one another? So when you come into this reality, when you're born into this reality, which is your rising sign, because like what time of day were you born? What time did you actually come into this reality? We or you are a physical imprint of the universe at the moment that you come into existence. So I don't know about you guys, but like when I was a little kid, I was like, I want to change the world, and
Hell
imagine
yes.
myself like being a celebrity on a platform. It's like, do it like this because I know everything. And I think that the
Same.
more we grow up and the more we go through the cycles of our lives, like, oh, I can't change the external. I really have to navigate and understand myself.
Yeah.
And so that's what astrology really helps us learn and really empowers us to do is like, oh, I can change my reality by changing and working with myself. And that's kind of how we go through the layers of like, what's your rising sign? What is your moon? What are the archetypes? What is the story of you through all the facets of you? So really at the moment that you're born, you're the imprint, the physical incarnation of the universe.
Ooh.
The rising sign, that's why we always ask, like, what time of day you were born, because that's really like the spiritual path. Like, where was the sun at the moment you were born? Was the sun above the sky? Was it light? So maybe your existence in this lifetime is going out and doing things in the world, right? Or was the sun underneath? Was it dark when you were born? Okay, so that
Interesting.
means you're born below the horizon line, so to speak. So this life is more about being internal. It's more about yourself rather than going out and being with other people.
Whoa.
So that
That's
right there,
crazy.
yeah.
Oh my God, I can't wait till we like talk specifics too.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
this
yeah.
is blowing my
Ooh.
mind.
So real quick, so that's your rising sign. The
Okay.
sun is the month that you were born, and the zodiac is divided into 12 kingdoms of light, or the houses, which are also the signs.
Okay.
And so that is really the mastery of your lifetime. And because really life starts at the navel, and they say also the soul leaves in the navel. So there's more nerve endings here than anywhere else in the system.
Wow.
So when they say that we're light bodies or light mind, human is just light of the mind. Hu is light, mon is mind, right? So to be in the light of the mind, to be in the light of the body, your mastery, your sun sign is kind of the interconnectivity of all of the light within your system, whether it be the consciousness or the nervous system, which is the light body, right? So through your lifetime, your spiritual path or your rising sign is a way to reach your mastery, your sun sign.
Oof.
So when you're reading horoscope, always read your rising sign and always read your sun sign.
Okay.
And what we really learned in 2020 is the moon sign is how you get there. It's how you emotionally navigate that spiritual path to get to your destination. So let's say San Francisco is Leo, right? You're a
Okay.
Leo. How do you become the best Leo that you can possibly be? Your rising sign. That's the way you get from Los Angeles to San
Wait, your
Francisco. That's
rising
the
or
way
your moon?
That's your rising sign. That's your
Oh.
spiritual path. That's the way you're going to
how you
journey.
get there.
And it's kind of broken down into elements. So are you a water sign?
Okay.
Well, maybe you're going to travel by water. Are you Scorpio? Maybe you're going to go really deep into the water, right?
So the
Ooh.
rising is not what you're turning into.
No.
Okay, because I'm going to use myself as an
Yeah,
example because I
yeah.
have to know.
Please.
So I'm a Leo and I have a Capricorn rising, and
Right.
I always felt like, okay, I'm a really hard worker. I'm like super
Exactly.
detail oriented, which is the Capricorn.
Yep.
But I always thought like, oh man, I'm turning into this goat, and I really want to be the lion. Although goat is greatest of all time. So it's fine.
Absolutely.
That's the Leo in me coming out, guys. I just realized that. No, but so I always thought, oh, I'm going to become a Capricorn, which is not a bad thing.
No, your
But-
path is to do the work, to be dedicated. Think about Capricorn.
Wow.
Capricorn, and there's these times in the zodiac, and they're always at the cross centers, right?
Mhm.
So the equinoxes and the solstices, those are the most powerful moments in the entire year, and also in the zodiac, those are really powerful houses. We call them cardinal houses, right? They're initiators. They begin things. Capricorn comes right after the longest day of the year. And from every moment in Capricorn season, we get a little bit more light and a little bit more light. So through our lifetime, we become masters.
Ooh.
Capricorn's theme is to achieve, but you don't get it easy because it's ruled by
Ugh.
Saturn. Saturn says, nope, pull back, pull back. In fact, if you look at the solar system, and they've studied all of the galaxies and all the solar systems that have the sun kind of as we have it, and there's these big gas giants like Jupiter that kind of, because of the elliptical belt, they come in, they destroy the inner planets, and then they unite with like the sun. Saturn formed at the same time all the other planets, and it's got this pull that pulls back Jupiter and all the other planets. So by nature, there's something that we have to learn in this lifetime, and that's kind of being a Saturn teacher, or wherever Saturn is in your chart. It's the thing that is not going to come easy to you. So being a Leo might not come easy, but through
It
your lifetime,
doesn't.
everything you do will chip away at becoming the Leo that you were meant to be.
And the moon is like the vehicle for how you actually
really
get
It's the
relate
there.
emotional
to the moon.
landscape of getting there. And it's who
Okay.
you are behind closed doors. Like when you close your eyes and you tune into your own energy, your frequency, your vibration, who are you and how do you handle the things that happen to you? Because life isn't about the things that happen to you. It's about kind of the way you get through them, right? And that's the
Okay.
emotional escape. And they also call your moon sign your tribe. Like, who do you come through past lifetimes, right? How do you emotionally connect with the world? And I love that you started out by, the moon pulls the waters of the planet. It also pulls the glandular system. Like loony and moody, those come from the moon, right? Hospitals see more people coming into a hospital around a full moon than any
That's
other
true.
time because
That's
our glands
true.
are open. We need to be
It's a fact.
expressive. We want to do this. We want to do that. So who are we behind closed doors? What do we do? 2020 gave us a year to not be our rising sign, going out there and doing and being in the world. We got to go home and like really look at ourselves and like, wait, who am I? And why am I doing all the things that I'm doing? This is my moon sign, just kind of sitting in the emotions of things. So yeah, it's just kind of the guide of how we navigate. If that
Okay.
helps.
That is so incredible. I mean, I feel like there's 1,000 things to ask.
1,000 things. I was going to jump in because I feel like that's perfect to be like, okay, we've all heard people be like, you know, they'll do something terrible and like, well, that's my Scorpio this. And you're like, but are you just an asshole? Like how, like when does it become so? What do you have to say about like how we can maintain autonomy and personal authority, like you were saying, using astrology to really change our internal world, as opposed to, because it's this fixed thing, it seems like, it can seem like on the surface, how do we not use our signs as an excuse for poor behavior?
Well, to address a few things, I think people will always come up with an excuse for bad behavior.
Of course.
But when you kind of dive into this, you realize that these are kind of like gear shifts, or, you know, when I talk about the different planets as archetypes, these are like different powers that you can kind of step into. And I love that you say Scorpio, because Scorpio is the most intense sign. And I love that you said fixed, because it is also a fixed sign. It sits in the middle of the season. Wow. Scorpio. But thank God for Scorpio, because Scorpio teaches us about cycles, death and reincarnation, and sexuality and spirituality.
Beautiful.
And intensity. But yes, you cannot blame everything on your sign.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And there's a lot more indicators, and it's called bad choice, not bad sign.
Right, because there's free will involved in everything. So it just has an influence over you versus actually dictating like your personal choices.
Yep.
And yesterday saw a little bit of my Leo sun and my Scorpio moon come out. This sounds so LA. Yeah, I totally saw those signs come out. But like there's immature, weaker versions, right, of each sign.
Yep.
And then there's like the more evolved, conscious versions. And we're always trying to become, there's two shadows, or there's a shadow side and a light side.
Okay.
And I shouldn't be explaining this, Kjord should be, but like I don't know. Leo, for example. Leo, for example, you know, we've got ego and pride and boastfulness and some of those things, but then we also have like huge hearts and, you know, leadership and what else do we have?
That's exactly it. So you could say like underdeveloped,
you
know, or kind of developed and becoming a little bit more conscious or aware of our actions. And look, life is a cycle, right? We keep returning to the same place to see, oh, I'm here now. Have I learned what I needed to learn? Am I leveling up? Am I leveling down? Am I going backwards? Which is a big thing in astrology too, is like the retrogrades. We get these really great moments of like introspection and kind of reviewing, revising, recalibrating. And that's the Mercury in retrogrades. We get 3 of those a year that really upgrade. It's almost like, your system needs a reboot. Time to like shut everything down, take a moment, and then come back online. And we get that, 3. Actually, this year we get 4. Four times.
Wow.
And for the second year in a row, they're both in air. So you have to think about kind of what we've gone through the journey the last few years of like our minds have got to change and kind of recalibrate to the future, yet still realizing that like we're still part of the past and kind of grieving of like what was and realizing it will never be that way again. So we get these little like upgrades or downloads of like, and last year they were all in air. This year they start in air and then they move to earth.
Can you talk about that a little bit more? Please. What do you mean when you say they're in air?
Yeah.
So, the planets and the signs are broken down into elements, right? Just like this planet is made of the elements from Earth, which is grounded, it's solid, it's geographic, it generates and creates, it's feminine in nature. The Earth
Mother
signs
Earth.
are feminine. Yep, exactly. Yep. And then we have water signs, right? So they're fluid, they're in flow, they're emotional. Is it a tidal wave? Is it a tsunami? Is it the river that can cut through? Water can cut through anything. It's the most powerful force on the planet, right? Then we move to fire. Fire is transformational. It's combustion. It can take something and turn something into something else. And this is the element that transforms what is gravity-based into elevation and lightness, right? And then we come into air. And just like love, air is everywhere. So there's endless amounts of love, endless amounts of air, movement, flow, dance. It's the mind. So the signs are broken down into elements. They all have a quality to them. Also, there's 4 quadrants that the Zodiac is broken down into, which would be the seasons. There's a cardinal sign, which initiates the seasons, which we just kind of talked about. Those are like the main houses that like initiate after the sun changes. Then we have the fixed signs. They're set in the season. They're like, Taurus is like, flowers are here, spring is here, abundance is everywhere. I just want to stay here. And she's like the princess of like abundance. And then Gemini's got to come with that mind and be like, girl, you got to come down off the throne because we got to transform and we got to bring Cancer in here. And then we see water in the Zodiac. So you just want to take a look at like, okay, what is that element? What's the flavor of that? How does that kind of influence and affect these signs?
Okay.
And we're not just our master sign. We're so much more than that. I kind of, when I do someone's natal chart, I say, what is the story of you as witness to all these archetypes? What is Venus doing on stage? And when is Mars coming in to rescue her? And what is Jupiter, the benevolent, whatever. So,
so exciting.
we have
So
so many
exciting.
characters inside of us, so we are not just one thing. And that's what's beautiful about astrology. It gives you kind of a map to like your life.
Yeah.
The reason I got into astrology, well, backing up just a little bit, when I was
Please.
a little kid, I was always fascinated with the stars. Like there's something out there, something's going on out there.
yeah.
And when me and my partners, we got a yoga studio, and it was my best friend for 20 years and my partner at the time. And we were kind of butting heads because we all wanted to do things differently. We decided to bring in an astrologer. And so she sat down, she pulled our natal charts, and then she talked to us about like, okay, this is your moon signs. So this is what this person needs when they need a timeout. This is how this person communicates, but it's not meant to like contradict or be too aggressive. So we kind of learned each other's communication languages. And she also did the studio at the time too. So then we had an understanding of this new kind of baby that we were creating. And it was so in alignment. And from that moment, I was like, this has to be a part of everything I do, every conversation.
Whoa.
If I'm helping someone kind of on their life path, let's like map it all out. Like where are going to be the hiccups, where maybe the cycle is going to come back again to maybe haunt, or you've kind of moved forward from that. You can work on something else. So it's a great indicator of like what you're meant to do.
That is so phenomenal. And you say she did the studio.
She did the studio.
Do
Yeah.
you mean like
There's a conception of, yes.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Does she even do like the rising and the moon sign?
Oh
for the
yeah,
stu-
it's
What?
basically the time that the studio is born. So the moment we got the LLC, that thing has been conceptualized. So now it's coming into the universe, right? So it's a
whoa.
universe itself.
I am learning
Whoa.
so many things.
And what you just talked about, it's like, that's kind of, I think, answers a question that so many people have. It's like, okay, great. This can tell me about myself. How can this apply to the future? How can this apply
Right.
to solving problems in my life? And like you're saying, well, the more we understand about ourselves, and then the more I understand about you and you,
Yeah.
the more that we can work in harmony together. So it's really imperative that we understand these elements.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's so
and
beautifully
understand
said.
each other. And then
Amazing.
the more you get to understand yourself, the more you understand somebody else. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's where she's coming from. I get the filter
Yep.
that she's seeing through. So there's a lot more compassion that can come in. And I think that that's really what we need in these times is compassion.
Oh,
So
agreed.
we can blame our signs. I'm just kidding.
Kind of.
Jokes.
What are you two trying to get away with? What are you two hiding?
You'll see.
You'll see. I'm finding Scorpio in your chart. And I love that you say Scorpio too, because Scorpio, hides the truth. They're the
Oh.
mystery people, but they're
I'm
also
not
the
Scorpio.
detective.
Yes. Oh, yes, I
Oh.
am.
See, you
Oh,
will
yes,
get down
I
to the
am.
bottom of it. No one
Okay.
is getting away with anything from
No.
you.
Not happening.
And then you bring that queen in, that Leo, and you're doing the hard work of Capricorn because that's the way you do things.
Oh.
Do you begin to see like we're so layered?
So
I'm going to shift that gear. I need to find out about that. I'm going to tap into my Capricorn, use that Scorpio detective. Yeah.
Wow, that is fascinating.
It's fascinating. Do you have? I was going to jump into something else,
Please,
but go
your
ahead.
questions have been amazing. So please,
I don't want to, but I just have to know now too. I want to talk about love.
Yeah.
So the Venus sign, that's really all I've ever heard about. Is there more incorporated into that? And then also based on your Venus sign, like can astrology tell you who your person's supposed to be? Do we even have just one person? Do we have like, what does astrology say about love? I want to know.
So let's back it up just a little bit. So
Okay.
yes, Venus it represents love, the flavors of things, personal value, self-value. But I would look at the moon sign.
Really?
Because, we have a mask and we carry a mask out in the world. That's usually kind of what baits and catches, right? When
Yeah.
we're out in the world, it's like, oh, I'm putting on my best self. And
Oh,
I'm like
yeah.
all the accoutrement from the hair to the whatever. We go home, we close the door, and who are we?
Yeah.
So you really want to take a look at someone's moon sign.
Okay.
When it comes to relationships, like how is this person going to operate when the mask is down, when the door is closed, when we're lying in bed, when we close our eyes? How is that connection there?
Okay.
And then Venus would be the love language. So what love language do you speak? Like,
Oh.
is your Venus in Aries? So is this person going to be obsessed with themselves? Are they
Okay.
going to, right? Are they going to be spending all that time kind of working on themselves, moving themselves forward? They're going to be very attractive. Like a Venus in Aries is going to be probably a very attractive person, right?
Okay.
Is your Venus in Taurus? This person has an inclination towards finance. They've got a gift towards finance. They want to like what works, what is value. They value themselves. They want to make sure the other person has value. That's kind of the love language.
Okay.
Is there Venus in Gemini? Oh, this person needs communication. That's their love language, is like communication.
Wow.
Do you see? So the more you
Okay,
kind of learn about the signs, and you're like, okay, Venus, that's their Venus, and then my Venus is here. And to be honest with you, that was actually one of the things we really had to look at the yoga studio. Is like, okay, when we're talking love and passion, because it's a passion project, where is this coming from? And when you're talking passionately, that's the lens you're coming from to bring it in. Right?
Okay.
So,
That is so fascinating.
now, can it determine like who's it going to be? I'm not that person. I'm sure that there are astrologers out there that might give that, maybe more of a psychic. But I think that that's where free will comes in too, you know. And I think
Absolutely.
a lot of like, is there one person for the rest of your life? Are those human expectations? You know, we're evolving so fast these days. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I think that those are personal choices. And I think that when it comes to any of this stuff, a heavy dose of discernment. And that was the big thing I had to learn the first few years I dove into kind of spiritual practices. It was like just a little bit of the cynic, you know, it's like, how much of
Absolutely.
this do I believe? Does this resonate with me? You know, I pull astrology from so many different people. Right. So where are you getting the information? Is it backing up what you already know? Is it stretching the mind? Is it stretching your heart? Is it stretching your perspective? Can you apply it to your life? You know, it's almost like a little bit of like training wheels too. Like apply it, have a conversation with someone. Hey, this is kind of my Venus, and I would like to have a dialogue about this, and find someone that can speak from their Venus, and then see how easy and flow, you know, can come in.
Oh, amazing.
And if you don't know what your Venus is, don't come talk to me. That's all I'm saying. I'm totally kidding. I don't know what my Venus is either.
You don't?
Well, not by memory, but we're going to learn. Kjord does these incredible charts. So
Oh my
Sophie and I
gosh.
are both getting them done. And I highly recommend that anyone who is curious about their chart also gets Kjord.
Please.
Because he
that's
does
so
these
sweet.
amazing in-depth.
Plug. Sure.
Yeah.
But something too to think about too is Venus doesn't travel that far from the sun. So whatever your master sign is, Venus is going to be not more than 2 signs away.
Wow.
That is true. I'm Aries and then Venus and Taurus.
There you go.
Oh,
So-
wow. Oh, you know your
There you
Venus?
go.
Yeah.
Wow.
There you go.
Look at
That's
me go.
impressive.
So let me ask you this, just to kind of test this. Do you like finance, value? Do you like the senses of life, like
I'm very-
smells, visual? Yeah.
I'm very physical. Physical
Yep.
touch is my love
Yep.
language. I am very visceral.
Yep.
Yeah. Money, I want to feel secure.
Okay.
But I would not say money is like isn't any kind of attractor to me in a relationship, but for sure physicality is.
Do you like manifestation?
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with it, but yes, that's been like a theme of my life. Just make it happen.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Taurus too, just for a moment. Taurus is a fixed earth sign. So
Okay.
it comes in the middle of spring, and the cardinal earth sign is Capricorn. So you're the initiating of earth. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
You're kind of in the
Oh.
earth, kind of doing the work. You are the abundance of earth. So taking like all of the senses and manifesting and generating from there, which could lead to money, but it's more like abundance, like
Okay.
the fruit of kind of the labor, so to speak. And then Virgo is the healer. So she's kind of like Mary going in and kind of doing the work to kind of heal and get inside the tissues of things, so to speak, if that makes sense, just to kind of further the dialogue and make it applicable. So
That's
anyway, I know you had
amazing.
a question.
Oh, well, no,
Sorry.
actually, I was trying to look. We might have to cut this part out because I'm like, what other questions?
Well, I've
did I
seen that
have?
with us, and you can probably speak on this too, because like you were just talking about the Capricorn initiator, and you're like we've talked about this beforehand. You're like, I want to cover all the bases. I want to get, and I'm just more like, I know it'll be great. I know it'll happen. Let's just show up and be like, what do we need to do? And she's like, oh my gosh, we have to prepare, which is amazing because I feel like we've definitely, and so when you were just talking about that, like, I really feel like that's been our dynamic. So it just goes to show that like this really can tell you a lot about how to work with yourself, but also with others in a way that's productive. Because how many times do people probably cut something short that could be beautiful if
Love
they
that.
just had more understanding?
Love that.
Yeah.
Love
Oh,
that.
girl, you are knocking them out today. This wisdom, both of you. I'm just sitting here.
Don't
in the
leave me
middle, like,
hanging, please.
oh.
No, and when you asked me to do the podcast, I was like, okay, there can't be any like little zingers or whatever. So you were so thorough. I was like, I don't even need to respond to this email. And I'm a very thorough person too.
Yes.
I mean, I
Look
wouldn't
at
say
these notes.
Capricorn's my thing, but I need someone that like does the checklist. I've
Okay.
learned through time and like production, all the things I do with events and whatnot. And I was so blown away by your email. It's like,
Oh,
Well,
wow.
that's going to your events and watching you work is actually something that's been so inspiring to me. Just the way that you put everything together, the way you present everything, the way you speak, and it just, yeah, I took so much inspiration from that.
Oh,
So
Aw.
that's amazing.
So Jupiter in Taurus in my 10th house.
Okay, so
Okay.
explain.
Okay. Maybe we should go through the archetypes, but we'll just talk about this because
Okay,
I kind of
okay,
brought it up just to
Okay.
kind of, because I want to keep kind of coming back so it kind of locks in. So Jupiter is kind of the gifted planet, you know, it's almost called the guru planet. It's like your best friend. It's benevolent. Wherever Jupiter is, hopefully there's something nice, but also Jupiter expands everything it comes in contact with. So sometimes
Okay.
that can be challenging, which was 2020. We'll get there. So Jupiter in Taurus. So I'm grounded in the work that I do. I want to manifest from it. And it's also the 10th house, which is career house.
Oh.
Wow.
So I'm kind of gifted there as long as I dig my feet in, as long as I cover the bases and work with the essences of things visually. Like a lot of like my life is events. So what do they look like visually? What is the feeling of them? Like how are people going to walk? What's the palpability of them? Like what is the aroma? What do people smell? Like what are they hearing? Like for me, music is everything. It's like the foundation of the ride in music. I'm sorry, in yoga. I'm always searching for new music. So just covering all those senses, and
Yeah.
they've really helped me in every career path that I've had. And I have like 20 lives with 20 different careers. And so I'm just kind of blessed with all of that bigness, if that kind of makes sense. Just trying to
Absolutely.
connect the dots there.
And Kjord really does cover all the bases. If you guys ever have a chance to go to any of his events, oh my goodness! And then you have Peter, who covers the taste
The
sense.
food, yep. I missed that one. Yeah, see, I missed that one. Someone else is going to cover that.
I need to
The
go to an
best.
event too. And that makes so
Yes,
much
you
sense
do.
because you do have a sense about you. Like when I met you the first time and then even here today, like you have a very big presence. Like I'm like, do I know him? It's something like seems familiar or seems like a leader. Like I just want to follow you. Like I don't know that sense about you. So that makes sense. So comes from the Jupiter.
And Leo rising.
Oh, and Leo
so
rising.
it's an air about me that I've
Okay.
come to understand, but also like in my early childhood, because I didn't fit in where I kind of grew up. I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. I was, raised in a Mormon family. I quickly understood that box was not going to fit or contain me.
Yeah.
And I was not kind of what I thought I needed to be. I was picked on a lot. So I kind of shrunk all that. It was later on in my life when I got to understand myself and the different layers of myself and how I could be of benefit to the world that I've really kind of stretched into kind of that Leo and leader. All the things I've done in my life have always been a leader or a manager or something like that
In
because I
charge.
naturally do that. And I really believe in servant leadership. I'm going to be the first one sweeping the
listen.
floors. If I'm asking someone else, I believe, moving from the bottom to the top. I worked at Nordstrom once and I love their philosophy. It's not from the top down, it's from the bottom. No, it's not from the bottom up, it's from the top down.
Ooh.
So the higher up you go, technically the lower you go to support the people on the front lines.
That's so beautiful.
So anyway.
That's amazing. And I couldn't agree with that more. That is beautiful.
So I love that. And I feel like that's kind of like my Leo rising. Because I'm an
Okay.
Aries, so sometimes I can be a little bit selfish, but I'm like, I believe in the betterment of everybody else.
That's incredible. And
Amazing.
Leo, I feel like is selfish too, though.
Can be.
Speaking from
But
experience.
Leo is the lighthouse of the Zodiac. And without the sun,
Aw.
we wouldn't have life. Fixed fire. Fixed fire. We also learn from the Wizard of Oz, like the Leo that doesn't understand themselves is deflated and doesn't have courage and doesn't come from the heart. But really the currency of these times is really to come from the heart, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that really is a currency. And it's the balance of kind of like the upper triangle and the lower triangle, that which is of the heavens and that which is of this earth. And that's ultimate alchemy, right? It was like sewing together
Yeah.
of the past and the future and the masculine and the feminine. And life is so polar, but how do we find the place to center? And the heart offers that. And that's where Leo lives.
And you mentioned the cowardly lion, and I actually have always identified with him a little bit. Just
Same.
in
Oh.
that journey of like feeling very scared to step into any kind of power or to share my gifts, whether that
Yeah.
be singing or, bringing people together like this. I really feel like I'm, for the first time, starting to be like, oh no, I have permission to be here. It's okay. I can take up space.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And let me ask you this. Do you feel like you're alone in that?
Yeah.
Have you felt that before?
I mean, not as much anymore. Was that a trick question? Like, I feel very supported by you guys, but
But you bring up a really interesting point. It's such a universal thing. We all have that trepidation that like, but I'm going to be a failure. I'm a fraud.
Listen.
Like we all
Right.
kind of have that. But I think Leos have that a little bit more because I think that there's a level of responsibility when it comes to leadership of like, how do I do this correctly? And we've seen so many leaders throughout times like fall off the platform, or because we're all human at the end of the day and we have things that we chose to learn, right? We chose to be in a physical incarnation. So
Yeah.
by the nature of that, we're always going to be under tension, stress, pressure, and friction. It's not always that we're going to make the right decision. In fact, we're here to make all kinds of decisions and have all kinds of love. And Leo really rules, I think, love, because it comes from the heart. So we have to kind of make those bad choices. But just like in life, and I think also in astrology, nothing is really good or bad. We're meant to be here to just be and to experience love. And that's what Leo really holds, I think, for the entire zodiac, is the light of our hearts. So keep going. We have to keep believing in ourselves. And that's what's great about astrology, is like when you don't feel great here, you can kind of lean back on like, I'm going to like lean on my Capricorn because I know how to do the work. I know how to put pencil to paper. I know how to get up every single day at this time and make it happen. And I look back, I'm like, wow, I'm like halfway up the mountain, right?
Yeah.
And you look like you do. As beautiful, that's also Leo. You're going to be the queen. And as you hike up that mountain, you're going to realize, oh, wait, there's 10 people behind me. Oh, wait, I'm doing this differently. Oh, I'm actually not on the path that everyone else is on. And then you start having people that follow. Not the life is about followers, but that really is. That's kind of like, do I dare do this? Do I dare do something different? And these are the times that like the Leos really got to come in, because we have to, these times are different. We've got to act different, behave different, do things that are different.
Oh, I love that so much.
That's amazing.
And another reason why I like to lean on my Capricorn too, being very Leo, by the way, keep bringing it back to me.
I love this.
No, but
I love this.
Our risings are Leo, so we're kind of having this.
And I don't want to talk about me, so that's great, as you know.
Oh, come on.
We can't wait to get to
wink, wink.
Wink.
My mom, who is now passed away, but she was a Capricorn. And I loved her work ethic and just her ability to get anything done she wanted to get done. Oh man. And she would do it at the speed of light and like with sprinkles on top. Like everything was so beautiful. But so I love leaning on my Capricorn even more, because even though it's like I'm sort of leaning on myself and the work I know how to do,
I love that. I'm
also like going through her and feeling supported by her.
Of course.
And just being like, okay, I'm gonna do the work the way she did. So yeah, I wanted to share that.
That's beautiful.
Life is so beautiful. And the one thing I love about the Zodiac, and I'm sorry about your mother, and it's interesting.
I
like,
feel her. She's here.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. Our moon sign is also our mother. It's feminine in nature. And I mean, think about the sun and the moon. It's like, is the masculine more powerful than the feminine? But in the sky, the moon and the sun look the same. And yet the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon, and 400 times further away. And yet in our eyes, they're the exact same. And it's funny because in our darkest times, that's when the moon shows up. It's like when mother shows up, she's always there to support us, you know? And furthermore, and something that you've experienced is like, I really love the power of new moons and the power of full moons, because the new moon are when mother and father in the same place in the sky, supporting new projects, new intentions, new beginnings. And then full moons are when father is here and mother is on the other side and saying, we're here to support you, stretch, pull, release, expand, step into. So those are the two most powerful times of like the mini kind of cycles that we go through before our solar return, which is like our birthday. So we get these little micro, and then we get the big macro.
That's such another great thing to pay attention to, is the phases of the moon.
Yes.
Okay.
And like you said, because they pull the glands, and so our experience shifts through the glands, our bodies shift through the glands and the cycle. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, please.
That's amazing. Okay, so so like with the phases of the moon, the cycles of the moon, like you're talking about with the new moon and where the sun is and when the moon is during that time. So are there certain times that we should be paying attention to do different things, whether it's maybe a move, whether it's starting a new career?
1,000%.
Okay.
Okay, let's go through the archetypes, because then it's going to give a little more context. We're talking about the moon and Jupiter and all these like crazy planets. Okay, so father.
Yeah.
Right? The sun, right? The light of everything. It's the conscious mind. It's what we see in our external reality. And that's what can be hard for people to grip, is the things that can't be seen. And so it's like, is astrology valid? Is it woo-woo? I can't really like see it. Well, it really is a science. It's based on mathematics and aspects of, coming within certain degrees. And the Zodiac is really broken down into, 12 components, and it's all pretty much 30 degrees, like the 30 days, right? So we go through the 12 kingdoms of light, 30 degrees in each of those systems, right?
Whoa.
And so if your sun is 15 degrees of Aries, you're kind of like you're kind of at the halfway mark. Does that make sense?
Oh.
And then all of a sudden, you've got like a square with the moon at 15 degrees, and a square would be the same sign. I'm sorry, not the same sign. It would be the same. How do I break this down? You're squaring off. So it'd be the same type. So Aries is a cardinal sign. So it'd be another cardinal sign. So it'd be squaring off with Cancer. So if your moon was in Cancer at 15 degrees, that's a square. So it's almost like you're kind of in the boxing ring. So it's not necessarily flavorful, or it's not. There's going to be a little bit of angst because they're kind of in the boxing ring and like, okay, what's going on here? So it's going to be like a little bit of a dance. Now I'm lost my thought.
No.
We're talking about 30 degrees.
30 degrees. Oh, we're talking about aspects. We're talking about mathematics and whatnot. Yeah. So the zodiac is broken down into 12 components, the 12 houses, the 12 signs. The sun is masculine. The moon is going to be feminine. Mercury, which travels closest to the sun, is kind of the messenger of the gods, so to speak. So it's the mind. Like, how does your mind work? How do you receive information? How do you give information? It's technology, right? It's kind of like the light burst, which is why when Mercury goes retrograde, you're wanting to think about electronics and systems go down, and the mind gets kind of that upgrade. Venus is the lover, right? She's the princess, right? So it's like, what are the flavors? Like, what music are you drawn to? What foods do you like? What are you really passionate about? Like a heavy metal rock guy still has a Venus, but maybe his Venus is about music. So maybe his Venus is in Libra's house because, Libra rules music. Maybe he has like a law degree, or it comes from law because that's the house of also Libra. So you can kind of begin to see it's like, that's the flavor of that, right?
Okay.
How does she manifest? Like, what does she prefer, right? She's a princess after all. And then we've got the Bachelor of the Zodiac, Mars. He's driven, he's forceful, he's projective, sexuality, the god of war, right?
Okay.
How do they kind of come together, right? Those are like polarities, just like the sun and the moon, masculine and feminine. We've got Venus and Mars. And actually this year, which is so great, Valentine's Day, they unite in the sky. So it's a conjunction. So they're together in the sky for Valentine's Day this year.
Wow.
So make a big thing out of it this year.
Oh my God.
Really?
We're both single.
What do I do? Hurry.
Hang out with each other.
Okay, let's do it. Beautiful.
So moving on, we've got Jupiter. So Jupiter is kind of the gift. We've kind of talking about that. It's like, okay, where are you kind of gifted? What is kind of like big for you?
Okay.
Where are you kind of blessed? It's kind of like the Midas touch, so to speak.
Oh.
And then kind of the last of the personal planets would be Saturn. So what are you here to learn? What are you here to do, so to speak, right? Wherever Saturn is in your chart. So for me, we kind of talked about like that Leo thing of like, I kind of have this sense from you, but my Saturn sits in my first house in Leo. So everything I do, you're not that great, and maybe you shouldn't say that because people are, So that's constantly this critic that's constantly chiseling away. So when I do something, it's got to be the best from my perspective. So yeah, Saturn is through time we will become the master. Through time we'll become the master, and that's why the kind of undeveloped Capricorn is lazy. So Capricorns are either really driven, or they've got to have these moments of like, I can't do anything. But what you don't realize, and usually this is kind of where Mercury comes in, is you're usually marinating on it. Just because you're not doing it, you're probably having to get the mind there before the body can get into it.
Does that make sense? How I work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so those are the personal planets. Those have a direct correlation with us. They travel around the sun very quickly. Saturn takes the most amount of time. It's 30 years, which is why you've heard of like a Saturn return, because it takes 30. Think about it. If it takes 2.5 years in each sign, 2.5 times 12 is almost 30. So you're going to go through some sort of crisis, probably from 28 to 30.
20 happens like 27,
there
right?
You go,
My mom passed away when I was 27 and all this stuff.
So
Your mom I got divorced.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go. I lost my grandfather. I lost my job. I lost my relationship. And that's okay. But that's what we're here to do. And that's what's great about astrology. It's like, these were all things that were meant to happen.
Whoa.
And if we back it up a lot, because I also have a Kundalini background and like yoga science and whatnot, is there's almost like a predetermining of the soul when you're in the ethers to decide on reincarnation, whether you believe in it or not or whatnot. That's almost like you kind of determine, I'm going to put my Mars there. I need my drive and my focus to be this. I want my sexuality over here. I want to put my Saturn here because I haven't really developed that. I want to polish and perfect. And you got to come to this planet and have the experience that kind of polish and perfect the soul. Now that's probably pretty esoteric and a little bit out there, but to think that like we all have a purpose. There's a reason why we're here, and there's a reason why we're here at this time. Yeah. And that's what I am trying to stress in any situation I'm in, it's like we chose to be here at this specific time, as challenging as it might be. And as much as we feel like we might be isolated, we're connected by that isolation, and we're just meant to anchor in what we're meant to be for the new fabric, the new nervous system of the planet to shift. And that's Aquarian. And that there's nobody sitting at the top. We're a web.
Okay.
Right? So personal planets. Then we move to like more the shamanic planets, more the kind of the deep and internal. They take a lot longer time to go around the sun. These are generational. Some of these planets take anywhere from 10 to 15 years. So we could all potentially, I mean, you guys are babies compared to me, but you know, people within a decade are going to have, or generations are going to have like their Uranus and Scorpio, so to speak. But what house is it in? And we'll kind of get to that in a second. So we've got Uranus, which is kind of the crazy, wacky, but also genius planet. How do you do things in a different way? It's the revolutionary planet. It's really the planet that's creating a very strong aspect between last year and this year. It's sitting in Taurus right now. So we're having to rethink our value system, rethink how we are living on the planet and the resources that she's able to offer us. Our financial system, cryptocurrency coming in, right? Even the dollar is like changing. All of the systems are coming down with Uranus sitting in Taurus, right? Neptune, it's kind of our highest self. It's our dream state. It's like wherever Neptune is, like you connect to your highest self when you're here, but it's also the planet of delusion and dreams and illusion. And then finally Pluto. Pluto, not even finally, but yeah. Death and transformation.
And that's why it's associated with Scorpio, right?
Scorpio.
Oh, wow.
Because Scorpio teaches us you can die and you can be reborn. And that's why they're so freaking intense.
Yeah.
Like, man, I love me a Scorpio because the waters are like, I crave the water because I'm going to like, everything is in flame.
Same here.
So I crave that. I love that regeneration. I mean, this Scorpio season, now that the nodes have shifted and now they're in Scorpio, it's like massive regeneration internally and massive emotional movement. And then finally Chiron, which is a wounded healer, which is kind of an asteroid. So Chiron is really powerful because Chiron was a centaur. Right. So they went off to war. Hercules, they won the war. And he was so excited. He swung the sword and nicked Chiron in the Achilles. And so the doctor, because Chiron was a doctor, the only doctor, now, you know, if you've done anything to your Achilles, you can't do anything. And he's bleeding from his Achilles. So the gods put a curse on him to live forever. So it's kind of the place in you that you're bleeding, that you're wounded. But if you can tap into the reservoir of that iron and that blood and that passion and then deliver from that place in an authentic way, it's the key to life. And actually the symbol of Chiron in the astrology chart, that's like the key to everything in life. It's like tap into what makes you bleed and then serve from there. So Chiron is ooh.
Yeah,
did you give me chills?
Like, I've had
you gave yourself chills. That's
I get. I'm blaming it on you too. It's the Aries in me.
I've never heard of Chiron before. Am I saying it right? Chiron?
Yeah, great.
That's amazing.
Was that previously Planet X?
I think no. I don't know.
I don't either.
Know.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, so this is astrology, the planets, like there is so much out there. There's so many different perspectives in astrology. I mean, there's so many different kind of avenues you can go down. If you're into it at all, just begin exploring it. Like you can find stuff on Instagram. Like I'll do charts for people. And then I say, take this information here and just go to Google and then pull up the 70,000 articles that define like Venus in Aries in the 9th house. And then you'll get to read more and more. And some of it will work. Some of it won't work because maybe there's more of a dominant influence. There's a stronger aspect where maybe the moon has something with Uranus and that's stronger than like the Venus in whatever.
Are there any specific sites that you would recommend? Or like there's one particular app that I love, which is called the CoStar app.
Love CoStar.
I love that one. So I feel like you get your chart read and you really understand your internal world a little bit more. But then I feel like there's probably a lot of misinformation out there. So if there's any particular sites that you would recommend people can go to, like I said, the CoStar app, I love that.
CoStar, Time Passages.
Susan Miller's really good.
Susan Miller's amazing.
She's
Chenny
incredible.
Nichols. Somebody that I really love is Gal Sasson. He's somebody I follow. He incorporates Kabbalah, and there's just something about the way that he shares information. Like it just goes right into my system.
Okay.
And that's something that I would impress upon people when you're kind of a novice and kind of jumping into these things. What is resonating with you in your system? Like really listen to your system. Does that resonate? Does it not? Is it easy to read? Is it easy to follow? I love metaphors and I love kind of the exactness of like, okay, this is happening now. If you go back 18 years, because we're talking about the nodes and the nodes cycle through every 18 years, what was happening in your life then? You know, or we're always in kind of a Saturn return. So go back 30 years. What was happening 30 years ago? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all cycles.
So when you begin, it's all cycles. And something we were talking about before, and I wanted to bring it to this, is like, it just reminds you that like there is no beginning and there is no end. The Ouroboros is the snake that's eating its own tail. So it's Pisces and Aries. It's like the ending and the beginning.
The infinity sign?
No, it's literally the snake, and it's biting its own tail.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, just kidding. We'll
cycle
edit
of
that
life.
out.
Yeah, but you can double it up and like make it 3D. Why not?
I thought the snake was like twisting and then biting its own tail.
It's because you're a dancer and you know how to move.
Exactly.
And maybe that's like the old days, and now the snake is doing this. You're bringing it in. I love it.
No, I love that. We have to keep it. It's so cute.
I'm embarrassed.
And I love no, please. I think too, like that brings up the importance of maybe too, if you're super, super, super new, like getting someone who reads charts professionally.
Yes.
Because even me, I've typed in my birthday information, but I don't know what a stellium in this is. I don't know. And I'm like, and it says this is your Jupiter's in your this house under this sign. I don't know what any of it means.
Yes.
So I can look my chart up, but deciphering what all these things mean, I mean, that's where I think maybe like a professional chart reader probably is helpful.
I would say, so I had my very first chart done at 17.
Oh.
I got a recording of it. I got a little book of it. Like, it was great. And it kind of started me off on a course.
Okay.
And remember, the brain can only handle so much. So you want to take it in little bits. Just start with the sun sign, and start with like the rising sign, and start with the moon sign, and just kind of get to know those and understand those and kind of work with those and see how they're kind of applied to your life. See, I am kind of emotionally predisposed to like have that reaction to things, and that's who I am when I like close the door at night. Like, I'm a Gemini, so I can sometimes be quiet. I can sit in a corner of a room. I always want to observe my situation. I'm not the one that will walk in and be like, And that's again my Saturn in Leo, because normally I should be able to do that. And if it's a container I'm holding, I absolutely do that, and I will make sure energetically I'm making sure that everybody in that room feels seen and heard and validated, and it's okay for them to be there. But normally for me, I'm like, I want to find the corner. I want to observe what's going on. I want to know what feels safe and whatnot. But behind closed doors, I'm a Gemini. And then I also will find myself arguing in situations, not because I believe the point, but because I just need to, do the opposite and play devil's advocate.
That's so Gemini.
In work, in my partnership. So my partner too, and the reason we've gone through all of this together in 10 years is we're both Gemini moons. So after an event, we'll be like, okay, what didn't work about it? What did you notice? Who was kind of like left out? Was there a ball that was dropped there? Okay, what was kind of great? Let's carry that on. And then we like learn from our mistakes. We talk about every single angle, which is kind of what Gemini does.
Okay, so in that instance, maybe someone with a different moon type, that might be overwhelming, or because you have something similar, it works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so you and I might handle a situation completely different, because I want to talk about it and understand all the different concepts and talk about like this and that. And you're like, but this is how I felt. And so that's where you could see maybe a disconnect perhaps, or when you understand that it's like, okay, let's speak the same language. Let's talk about emotion so that you feel seen and heard. And then let's actually continue to have the dialogue and talk about all the perspectives so I'm seen and heard. So that's when you begin to understand someone's moon sign, right? Which is the way they kind of get through things. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Okay.
Amazing.
And your moon is
Sagittarius.
I love
so you want to get to the truth of it.
I want to get to the truth. And I also I have to be able to like get away and be on my own for a little bit.
Because you're an adventurer.
Have to.
Yeah. Sag is
big
like,
time.
No. It's actually the only sign that is like half man, half horse. It's like, you don't want to be this, you don't really want to be that. And it's also shooting an arrow, because it's like, this isn't good enough. I got to see what's over there. I got to see what's out there.
Right.
I got to try that culture and that cuisine and experience those people. Yeah, this is fun, but let's try something else.
Absolutely. Every minute of the day. Yeah, that's so funny. And it makes sense, because we kind of like you were bringing up, we kind of are figuring that out with how we work together with Scorpio moon. And that makes so much sense. And then we're navigating that. And like you were saying, I think that's really where compassion comes in and understanding that we all are different people at the end of the day. And that when something pops up, it's not personal. It's just we all have certain ways that we maybe innately would react to a situation if we're not thinking, from our highest self. So there's room for all of that. Yeah.
Which of these is more important?
Your fingers?
Mm-hmm.
They're all important.
Wait, stop. Like, oh, they're all important. Yeah, you're
They
right.
just have different perspectives. They might look a little bit different. They have different functions, right? They can do different things,
And yeah.
but they all come from the same place.
For people who are really unfamiliar with astrology, maybe they just know their sun sign. They don't know anything about the rest of it. What can you tell us just about the basic structure of astrology, like houses, fixed versus cardinal? Explain some more about that.
Love it, love it. Okay, so when we pull a chart, it's a pie, right? So it's a circle and it's broken down into 12 parts. We call them the 12 kingdoms of light.
Okay.
Why are they kingdoms, not queendoms? Because light, it's the sun. It's masculine energy, right? And every 30 degrees, the sun changes a sign, right? In a different constellation in the sky, so to speak, right? So if Aries initiates the zodiac at spring equinox, it's the beginning of life. So just as much as we celebrate New Year's, technically, spring equinox is the beginning of the zodiac. So Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So Aries are the initiators, right? It's the first fire sign. You need a spark to begin anything, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So initiator, cardinal, Aries starts the zodiac. Then we move into a fixed sign because each of these quadrants or seasons of the zodiac has a cardinal sign that starts the season, a fixed sign that holds the season, and then what we call a mutable sign that's flexible, that needs to take one season and move it into the next season.
Okay.
So Aries initiates, Taurus holds and suspends, and then Gemini comes in, is very mercurial. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, as we know. You got to be really smart to take the queen off the throne, right? And then move into a new season. And then Cancer is the first time we see water in the zodiac. It initiates creativity, right? It initiates kind of the dawning of the darkness, which is ultimately the light, right? So if you take the circle, if you split the circle in half, everything below the horizon line is me. Right. So anything is below the horizon line, any planets that are there, those are going to be more personal planets, a personal experience. Anything above the horizon is going to be more external. So that planet is going to have more of kind of an external focus, so to speak. Yeah.
Perfect.
So Aries, Taurus, Gemini, that's spring quadrant. In the zodiac, it's flipped. So it's actually starts on the left side, the ascendant, kind of where the sun was at the moment that you were born, the sun kind of coming up over the horizon. So that first quadrant is about me, right? It's about who I am in the world, how I show up in the world. Aries. Taurus, what do I value about myself? How am I meant to show up in life? What am I kind of like meant to do and how am I supposed to manifest? And then it comes Gemini, comes the mind, to realize that we are two things. We're two-sided, right? So we've got a masculine side, we've got a feminine side. We come from above, and now we're working from below, so to speak. Does that make sense? So that's the first quadrant. That's the me quadrant. We move into the fourth house, the fifth house, the sixth house. So that's going to be more summertime. Cancer, it's the home, it's mother, what was kind of early child life like. Leo, where was I a child? Where was my innocence? Where is my creativity? How do I play with life, so to speak, right? Then we move into Virgo. What am I kind of meant to do on the soul's path? Like, what is my body? How do I clean my body? How do I take care of my body? So it's all kind of like me, I. These are like very personalized houses. And then we begin to move above the horizon. And that's where we start seeing opposites. So when we look at the circle as a whole, the lower circle is me. So the first 6 months from Aries to Virgo is me. It's self. And then we go out in the world. So if Aries house, the first house is about me, what is that opposite house 6 months away, which would be Libra? You've got me, and then you've got we.
Okay.
So we really look to the seventh house as relationship and partnership. So if your planets are in that house, there's going to be action when it comes to relationships. There might be something you're learning, something you're going through. Maybe you have a predisposition for being in a relationship. Maybe, we talked about this before, or we'll talk about this a little bit later also, is what do relationships look like for you? What is partnership? When is that partnership coming in? Is it going to be challenging? Is it going to be strife? Is it going to be easy for you to get into partnership, right? And then we go to the eighth house. So Taurus, everything is polar and everything is the spectrum and an axis, right? So if Taurus is about personal value and manifestation, what is the eighth house? Scorpio. It's about other people's money, right? So really, these are the manifestors of the zodiac, right? They're the ones that generate and create, and they're both fixed signs. So they're meant to be abundant in nature, right? Sexuality is actually creativity. And sensuality leads us to sexuality, which leads us to creativity, right? And they're
Mhm.
both really transitional signs. One sprouts up and out, the other one kind of goes down deep and regenerates.
Wow.
Ninth house, right? So if we go to the third house, is like kind of communication, brothers and sisters. It's Gemini's house, the third house. Then we go up to the ninth. It's about other kinds of learning. It's not just base learning like school, elementary school, middle school, high school. It's like universal knowledge. It's also being a Sagittarius moon is like, I need to go out and like, what else is out there? What other
Yeah.
languages are there? What other cultures are there? So for me, I have a stellium in my ninth house. And when we look at kind of the dial of the disc, we always want to know when you're born because it switches.
Okay.
It's like all of these houses, the structures are the same. Aries house is always about the self. It's about the self-image, it's about the way that you kind of show up in the world, what you look like, how other people see you. That doesn't change. However, the time of the sun at the moment that you were born, that could totally change. So specific to me, Leo runs that house. So Leo sits on my ascendant and Leo is renting Aries' house. So I'm going to have a vibrato to me, right? No matter what I do about other people, my whole life and my whole existence is supporting groups of people. I have to feel connected to it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I can't do it, right? So there's got to be kind of a little bit of that selfishness, which is synonymous with fire signs, especially Aries and Leo, because Aries is about the self and Leo is about the heart and showing up and being big and being on stage and really like moving energy, right?
Yep.
Through light. So, but then I've got my Saturn there, which is like pull back and now I got enough. You need to take another moment, another pause, do a little bit more work, right? So I got to have someone do the work for me. I know that there's work to be done, but I don't want to do the work.
No.
So anyway, continuing on, because houses are so important. It's like you got a little neighborhood, the houses don't change, but what if we just all played like musical houses or something, right? You're going to bring in a different flavor to the structure of my house, right? I might have like marble tables and I might have a leather sofa, but you're going to bring in your candles, you're going to bring in your luggage, which you actually did bring here. So you're going to bring in a different flavor. So it's so important, and that's where like astrology is so layered, and it takes lifetimes to really understand it. Yeah, you might have a planet in this house, and your sun might be that, but what house is it in, right? So for me, my sun is in Aries, so I'm going to bring fire to every situation. I'm a fire starter. I want to go start this. I don't want to be around to like keep it going. I want to move on and start the next fire.
Listen.
But it's in the ninth house, so my life and the way I shine the brightest is when I'm shifting people's perspectives, when I'm taking them from here and getting them there. Like I love international culture, cuisine. Like I have this connection to Mexican culture and like Spanish life. I know that many of my lifetimes have been that, you know? So I love traveling, and also I feel comfortable teaching. And the ninth house is about teaching. It's about wisdom. It's about understanding one thing and kind of shifting it to something else. And so that's where I shine the brightest, so to speak. So when you look at your sun sign, it's like, that's where you shine the brightest.
Okay.
The gentleman who's running this place, he shines the brightest because the studio is so freaking amazing, but he doesn't even know it. He's like, I don't know, like I'm a tourist, but I don't get it. And then you're like, wow, this place is freaking amazing. So this is clearly where you shine the brightest. So that's something to like point out. And so as you kind of dive into astrology, just get to know like, what is your sun sign? And then kind of sometimes it's offering people that perspective, like, I kind of see that about you. And sometimes they don't even have the awareness themselves. And believe me, that continues for me as I continue to dive into my chart. It's like, okay, now I'm studying my Mars. My Mars is in Aries in the ninth house. How does that give me passion drive? It's actually not. I totally made that up. My Mars is actually in Pisces in the eighth house. So to give some context to that, my drive, my purpose, where I'm fiery, like where I feel so much passion, is in Pisces, in mysticism, in connection. It's interesting because you can almost say like someone might not have as much ambition if their Mars is in a water sign, because it's almost like you take that fire and you put it into water.
Yeah.
But water is a really fantastic conduit because it's in Pisces and also in Scorpio. So I've got all that drive, all that purpose, all that light, but to bring to almost like to the occult, so to speak. It's like to kind of make the unseen seen, right? And do it in a very transformational way. And that's why I also love movement, because as much as you want to talk, I want to give people the experience of it in their bodies. And that's why I also love Kundalini, and we'll get there, to really close your eyes and really have this understanding of like, wow, I'm more than just a physical body. There's energy moving inside of me. There's a whole universe. I see different things when I close my eyes. How do I shift it and how do I move it? So for me, I'm really exploring my Mars in Pisces in that house. And I feel like that's a way to kind of reveal to other people where their money is, because I'm working with other people's money, of like, get to the passion of who you are and what you're really meant to do. And sometimes that's behind the scenes of what might not seem so obvious, which is Pisces. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
It's incredible.
Totally.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so when we're talking about, first and foremost, since there are so many different aspects to our charts,
Yep.
really everyone can sort of be a little bit of everything.
Yes.
It's not like we're just one sign.
1,000%.
And when it comes to the houses, what is like the actual definition of a house?
Yeah.
Because I'm just thinking like, okay, I've got these little houses and there's, so each house represents something different, right? I don't know if we want to go
Yes.
into that because I know it gets very
Yes.
complicated and involved.
Well, I kind of just gave you
Yeah.
a little bit of a rundown of what
Yeah.
that is, from like the self to personal value,
Right.
personal money to siblings, information, education. Third house, fourth house is about mom, the kind of the home structures that we were born in.
Mhm.
So if we go to the fourth house, the opposite of home is work. So the 10th house is about your career, how you're kind of like seen out in the world, so to speak.
Okay.
The 11th house is community. It's how do you, it's Aquarius. It's kind of like going beyond. It's democracy. It's the future. If you've ever been to Aquarius, you're kind of like odd. You
Yeah.
know, do you really belong here? Because they're not really from here, and they're so connected to that authenticity of like, we're here for a moment in time.
Yeah.
You know, we're meant to kind of bring what is out there really here. I mean, obviously we're all from different star seeds, but the Aquarians are really the ones that are moving us and guiding us into the future, especially now that we're in Aquarian times, right?
Amazing.
So it's interesting where Leo is about the self, right, and the heart. Aquarius, which is the opposite, is about bringing that into community and making sure there's a very democratic feel and that we're all kind of involved and like all people can move forward, not just the top, right? Which is kind of the time that we're coming from. If we're talking about Virgo is about the nitty gritty details. Like Virgos are probably, they very much watch themselves. They're not drinkers. They're not the ones doing drugs. They're the healers of the Zodiac. They got to clean up the mess from Leo. Like Leo's like, yeah, it's summertime. And then Virgo's like, time to go to bed. We got to sweep the house. We got to clean it up. We got to clean up the set, guys.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, and then Pisces is like, I want nothing to do with the details. I want to dream and look
Yep.
up in the heavens and understand the magic of everything and the mysticism. So, do you get a complete picture of the Zodiac?
Yeah.
And yet we are that full complete picture. Like people are like, oh, I don't have that on my. No, you absolutely do.
Yeah.
What flavor is it coming up? And then that's what really helps when it comes to transits. This is where the planets are moving. This is where they are. Oh, I don't have anything. I don't have any planets in my natal chart there, but this is moving through this house for me right now. And that's why I'm going through this.
Okay.
So it just helps give an understanding of like the movement and the cycles of life, astrology.
And I think it's just
Amazing.
so important to know your chart because like you were saying, Pisces don't want to look at details. But then if someone's listening to this and they're a Pisces that loves looking at details, because I do know a Pisces
Yeah.
that's incredibly detail oriented. He was our stage director and one of our choreographers for the girl group I was in. And he was just so about the nitty gritty, didn't miss a beat, didn't miss a detail. And so he obviously has other things coming into play
So
in
he
his
could
chart.
have a Mars in Virgo. So he's got a drive and a purpose and a passion to get to the details of things. Does that make sense?
That makes
I
sense.
love that that's such a great question because people are like, that is not me.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, how dare,
Right.
like, this astrology is done. That doesn't work. Are you
Right.
kidding?
That's where people get
Because
confused,
we're
and that's why
layered.
they want to
Yes.
like brush it
Yeah.
off because there are so many layers to this.
Oh, that's
so
amazing.
again, if we go to the archetypes of the planets, it's like, how do I receive information? How do I give communication? What is my communication style? Mercury. Venus, like, what do I love? What am I passionate about? Like, what do I like go to the ends of the earth for? Mars, like, how do I want to be potent? How do I want to be sexual? Like, how do I create?
Yeah.
And also, how do I start wars? Do I send emails? As my Mars and Gemini, I'm sending emails and like really bitchy texts, right? Jupiter, it's like, where am I giving love, or where is the universe bestowed like the Midas touch, so to speak?
Yep.
Like where is something come from generations and whatnot? And also when you look at a chart, if there's an R, like a retrograde, if you have a predominant like R in your chart with these planets, you're very much connected to past lives. So there's all these like
Oh.
different indications. And one thing we haven't even touched on is the nodes.
Yes,
And
what are nodes?
I know it's something I always talk about. It's like, well, we can talk about all the planets and the archetypes and the stories and all these different facets of you. And then there's the nodes. And that's the purpose. It's the dragon. You don't want to fuck with the dragon. I'm sorry. You don't want to mess with
You
the
can
dragon.
swear.
You
Oh,
can
we can swear in here?
Yeah.
It's fine. Not-
We're going to put the explicit by.
This is ABC.
Right.
Sorry. North node is your purpose. It's what you're meant to do, but does not come easy for you, right? It's like the dragon is going there. It's got a purpose. It needs to manifest this thing that you have never done before. and it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. South Node is everything you've learned in previous lifetimes. It's almost like your Superman cape or your superhero cape, but they're the things you need to drop in this life to focus on where you're heading. In fact, I worked for a
Oh.
brand that their main focus was like find your true north. Like there's something so powerful about going north and heading in that direction of finding your purpose.
Chills.
And that's your nodes. Now there's collective nodes, current nodes, and that changes every 18 months. And those nodes are eclipses. So they're powerful amplifications of full moons or augmentations of new moons. They're quickenings of things. If people want to look at like potential death, like maybe that was a year that like your birthday actually is on an eclipse. That's a speeding up of things. So you want to really take care of your health during that time. Just powerful shifts. So collectively right now for the next 18 months, because the nodes just shifted from North Node Gemini, South Node Sag to North Node Taurus, South Node Scorpio. So what are we collectively meant to learn? Value in a different way, money in a different way. And because Taurus is the sign of Earth, what are we meant to really do here on Earth, and how are we meant to take care of Earth? How do we like look at the environment in a different way, right? And now we know that Uranus is sitting in Taurus for several years, right? So we have to think differently. We've got to bring a little bit of crazy genius in the way that we're looking at financial structures, how we manifest our personal value, our collective value. Like this isn't just countries and people. Like this is now we're a global citizenship, right? We have to like, what is the future of humanity and the things that we're doing to this planet? She doesn't need us, and she will find a way. So do we want to stay? How are we going to take care of the earth? So this is that time.
Wow.
Can I ask a really basic question?
Please.
And I'm kind of embarrassed. Okay, so we're talking about like the houses and the nodes.
Yes.
So what dictates which signs are in which house and which node?
It's all is based on the time that you were
And it's the
born.
way that the planets are moving through the constellations?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did we talk on that before and I missed it?
I think you touched briefly.
So we
but
kind of like to go back, remember at the moment of incarnation, your natal chart, you are the physical incarnation of everything that was kind of happening.
Absolutely.
From Mars up there and Venus underneath. So you're all of those aspects. And also think about it, there's such a feeling collectively on the planet after we've just gone through this massive thing that we've all had an experience of. It's all been individual and we've all had a separate experience. And then that's been broken down by politics and other things that have to do with it. But we've all experienced a similar thing.
Sure.
Right? So that's a pressure that these children are being born into. Does that make sense?
Of course.
And there's alignments with the planets there. If we look at 2020, there were 3 moments in 2020 that the planet of expansion, Jupiter, the planet of structure, Saturn, and the planet of death and transformation, Pluto, they all united in the sky 3 times. The first time they united, COVID. The second time they united, social, right? BLM, the Asian stuff. Fall, it was more personal. Like we had personal meltdowns, personal shifts. For me, that was like everywhere that Kjord was Kjord, gone. Like any sort of brick and mortar or structure that like I was me is like gone. So it really gave, I think, all of us, I'm talking personally to give a personal experience, but we really had to look at ourselves like, whoa, where was I headed? Where was I going? Where was I doing of the identity of me? And then really stepping back of like, okay, this is a time to kind of reset. And that's where we're talking about the Mercury and retrogrades. Our mind has also got to come out of the paradigms and the programming and the structures of the way that things have been, because that's not the future.
No.
So we got to look at everything different. We've got to be different, and we've got to be ourselves. And when it comes to spirituality, that's the thing I always say to people, don't try to be spiritual. Just be you. Just be you and close your eyes and be like, where am I in this moment? What have I come through? What am I going through? How can I be of support? Because I am a citizen of this planet at this time, meant to do what I am meant to do that nobody else has done or will be able to do. It's only me. And that's really empowering. There might be some pressure there, but we chose to be here and we need to crystallize.
That just actually too gave me a new perspective. This is something Natasha and I have talked a lot about. I have a difficult time being super vulnerable with people about, I have like a level that I'll go to, but then there's deeper, and I don't like to really cry in public. But with what you're saying with like the planets and how like we chose to be here, when I'm listening to you talk, I'm like, in a way, it's sort of selfish for me to be so consumed with being afraid of vulnerability. It's like almost like there's no time for that because we've chose to be here at this time, like you're saying, and there's too much work to do. So in that way, it's like astrology can help us get over some of those personal hangups that are really maybe coming from the ego, and wanting us to hold back instead of contributing to humanity.
So you make a really good point and something I want to talk about, because you're all the representations of fire.
Am I?
Including your emotional sign, your moon sign is Sagittarius. It doesn't want to be here. It wants to be over there and try this and try that. So you're meant to continue perpetuate us and move us forward and keep us thinking, forward thinking and kind of like other thinking and thinking about other cultures and whatnot. So maybe you're not a water sign that wants to be here and feel emotionally connected to kind of the moment. You're the one that continues to move us on. That's your emotions. That's your emotional language. So you're still emotional, but you're like, let's talk about this, but let's continue on. Let's keep moving forward.
Yes.
Let's keep like reaching the next destination, so to speak. So for you being an Aries as your master sign, right?
Yep.
That's a cardinal sign. You like to start fires. You might look back and you're like, yeah, I may have started some wars with some friends. Maybe I don't know, a back pocket. Me too. Me too. It's like, oh, you didn't want to know me from 0 to 28.
Listen, yeah.
And then you've got Leo. You've got the fixed sign. So you're staying in your fire. You're staying in the light. You want to radiate that light so much you bring other people into the fold.
Yeah.
And then your emotional state is mutable. You want to share and you want to move emotions, right? You don't want to stay in the emotion. You want to move through the emotion and kind of put the emotion here and try it over there and share the spark and share the light. You're almost like the Olympics. You're taking the torch and you're moving the torch around the world, because sometimes people that are overly emotional can be stuck in themselves and not realize that like our way for emotional connection is to talk to other people. Oh, you feel that too, and you feel that too. So you're taking the torch of the Olympics. You're bringing all those cycles together to create light.
And then when you say talk to other people and you're here on this podcast and also in school and about to graduate for psychology.
Wild.
That's
so crazy. Like you said, almost. And so then almost when you're thinking about that, and maybe it's like just going with your sign. So like instead of me trying to be more emotional and like, I need to cry more and I need to do this, maybe it's just figuring out, like you're saying, no, I have a different way that I process emotions and leaning into that instead of.
Exactly. And then you stop doing that to other people. Like you should and they should and she did and he, oh my, and they, no. Because you start realizing like, oh, I'm so layered, and maybe that's where she's coming from. You start to understand through compassion, and then we really begin to understand the times. So just understand like there's certain qualities to every sign. What element are you? What quadrant is that following in? I really look at like an overall, when I look at a natal chart, I was like, oh, the majority of the planets are in that first lower quadrant. This lifetime is about themselves. So they should be self-absorbed and selfish because they're meant to learn a lot. For me, a lot of my planets are in the other quadrant, like the 7th, 8th, and 9th like houses. I'm meant to be out in the world. Like I said before, it's like we have a material body, we live in a material world. There is tension, stress, and pressure and friction everywhere. We're not escaping that. So what are we meant to do with it? How is it meant to percolate us? How is it meant to crystallize things for us? We're not escaping it ever. How do we navigate it? That's our emotion. That's our moon sign. How do we find the love in all of it? That's our Venus sign. How do we continue to connect to that drive and that purpose? That's our Mars. Jupiter, where are we gifted, right? Where am I the shaman because of what I've been through? We all have a story. We all have deep pain. And most of that, as a psychologist, by the time we're like 5 or 7, a lot of the stuff is already embedded in our psyche. And then you go to other sorts of philosophies. And then some say it's 84 million lifetimes by the time we get to be human.
Wow.
And then we throw it away. But, in meditation, like I teach meditation, go back to your time as a rock. Connect to stillness and just observe everything happening around you or everything happening within you. And you realize that as above, so below. It's hermetic, right? It's all alchemy. We are everything and we are nothing. And that's also something I teach people, because so much of our lives, we get these identities that have been pressed upon us. We get these, and even astrology is like, oh, I'm the sun sign, I'm this, I'm that. You're all of it, and then you're none of it.
Right.
We're also the nothingness. And yet we learn that in breath, because as much as we take on, as much as we want to fill up the fridge, we also have to empty the fridge. We have to empty the breath and return to the nothingness, because we will return there once again.
Oh,
But look at the nothingness. It's everything.
It's everything. And I think it's speaking about healing and how to bring this back to healing. I mean, I have found in my own journey through recovery, which all that we touch on in the intro episode, but like when I had that realization of my own insignificance, and it wasn't in a self-pity way, it was actually so relieving
I love that.
And I remember, funny enough, I was in Wyoming and I was looking up at the stars. I was looking at the night sky and I was like, I am this big and I'm so insignificant, but in a way that put a smile on my face. And I think that's such a relief to so many people. We can have these God complexes or whatever it is, feel so overly responsible. So I don't know where I was going with that, but
it ties back into the fact that like we're like nothing, but we're also everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's no separation, and that's like when we feel like so isolated and so alone, we're actually not alone at all.
No.
And the one thing I always say, and the thing I love, and the thing that reminds me of being a child and always looking up, is that every person, every human that has left this planet, there's so many stories and documentaries of these astronauts that leave and they've been looking up their whole lives and looking out, and they've filled their brain with the information. And it's the awe of leaving the planet, and all they can do is look back at Earth. And it's just one thing. One being, one organism, and we're part of that. So how can we look down on other people, other cultures, other civilizations? Like, oh, I'm better. The way I believe is better. No, it's like, can you imagine if we just all came together and we celebrated each other's differences? We celebrated how we look different, the different languages we speak, the different food, like culture and everything. Like, can you imagine? And we are getting to that age. I mean, we're really in the Kali Yuga right now of like destruction. I mean, and the planets are kind of like, they're not the predictors of everything, but we can look to the planets of like, oh, there's these certain alignments that are going to cause change. How do we get through it? That's what we get to determine. That's where free will comes in, right?
And what if in the same way that astrology is the map of us, like you're saying, what if it could be a map for the world too? Like how we have different planets and houses. What if this culture is this house for the world? And instead of like you're saying, figuring out how we all work together, just like our Saturn and our Jupiter and our sun sign and our moon sign. What if we all represent something and we could just view it that way?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the United States, 1776. If you pull up the chart for that, we're coming into a resurgence of that. Pluto is returning home. So the United States is going to go through massive transformation. We already are. So a lot of that was happening with what happened in 2020.
Because 2020 represented
the expansion of the destruction and the death in a massive way, Jupiter, with all the structures and institutions. And they're still coming down. It's basically Jenga right now, right? It's just like everything is kind of coming down because it needs to be rebuilt for the new Earth, right? So it's going to be done in a different way. And that's Pluto.
And for 2020, the planets were aligned in the sky in the same way that they were, 100 years before that, where something similar happened? Or what
so
was
they've
it?
actually never really seen those three planets connect in that way. And then for the first time in 26,000 years on winter solstice of 2020, Jupiter and Jupiter and Saturn, expansion and contraction, united on winter solstice in Aquarius. It was the dawning of a new day.
Wow.
And now we're just beginning to move in that direction. But we still, because we're emotionally connected to who we have been and who we've always been, because it's what we know, we're still kind of carrying the past with us and that collective grief of like, but I wanted to go back to the way it was. It was easy. We were blind, or we were drunk, or whatever it was. And now like we're so awake and we're in this time of like such polarity because now everyone has solidified their side, which is so polar and it's so dividing of people. And then we've got these, information strains that are like revalidating, like I believe this side, and then Instagram and Facebook, and you also believe this, and you also believe this, and then we tune into like the news, and it reconfirms, and so there's this kind of divide. But what is great about that is there will be a coming together, and that's what 2022 is about. And so that's where we bring numerology in, and it's like it's a 6, but it's built by 2s, which is partnership and polarity, and very much like Gemini. But we have to come to the ways of the heart. We've got to embody. We've got to like live on the planet at this time and do things differently. But it's got to be the heart that cinches those together.
And that's also why like 2020 and like 2020 vision, everything coming to light.
Yes.
All this clarity.
And 2022, like February 2nd of this year and February 20th are really powerful dates for that too. Yeah.
As you guys can tell, Kjord is definitely an expert of astrology.
Yes.
But there is so much more to learn and so much more to discuss. And we could go on and on forever. So if you guys want your chart read, I highly suggest reaching out to Kjord. Where can they find you?
Kjord.com or strike a chord on Instagram.
Perfect.
I love that name.
Which it kind of goes to the gram a year ago. I just need to take a break from the battlefield.
Totally
I love it.
understandable.
So I got to get back on there. But yeah,
But Kjord.com, KJORD.
J
Mhm.
is silent. Or strike a chord because it's all about striking your chords and playing the instrument that you are.
I love that so much.
What?
But thank you
I
guys
love-
so much for tuning into this episode. We're
Yes.
actually going to maybe continue our conversation. So if you want to listen to the extras that are associated with this episode, please do. We're going to go into the specifics a little bit more of our signs and have a little bit of fun with that. But thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on.
Oh, this has been so much fun.
This
Thank
is
you.
And,
incredible.
I just love you to pieces.
I
And
love
from the
you so
moment I met you,
much.
this is going to be
Same.
the beginning of something very beautiful.
Same. Agreed. Thank you so much.
And hopefully we get to meet all of you soon.
Yes.
Yes.
Seriously.
Yes,
Party
absolutely.
time.
Thanks
Okay.
for having us.